Welcome to Study Buddy, meditation philosophy for the heart of your practice. This is a live online discussion of ancient yogic texts amongst meditation practitioners in the Shambhavananda yoga tradition. My name is Acharya Satyam, I'm the resident teacher at Konalani Yoga Ashram in Hawaii, and I welcome you with love and respect. All right, welcome. Welcome. Good to see everybody. Pujari, how's it going? Gita, Henri, Randu. Yo, Gita, how are you doing? You ready for some yoga, Yogita? It's gonna be okay? All right, hang in there on that. Sea turtle lover. All right, Roseanne, put it out there. It's like, whoops, that was from my Zoom meeting with the Sea Turtle Committee. Anonymous, looking good. Anju, how's it going? Doing good? Cool. And yeah, J-Ram and Kazuo, they were here a minute ago. It's great to see y'all logging in. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you, what, a week and a half? Something like that. And Trey, 2 weeks in a row, Trey, you're making this a thing. I'm going to expect you next time. It's awesome. All right, cool. We are going to start with some yoga. I was hoping the work that I was doing this morning to prepare for this class had me on the floor. So hopefully that's okay. The room's not too packed in here for us, so I think that'll be all right. And if for you out there, I don't have to be able to see you, but just find a spot where you can be on your back to start. And we're just going to play around on the floor a little bit, warm up the back muscles, warm up the core. We're going to open up the side body a little bit. And I hope that the result is that when you sit for meditation, it feels effortless and amazing. Tejvan, welcome. All right, you can just find any spot where you can do a little bit of yoga. If you want to, yeah, I don't know. Over here is possible too. Okay. All right. Excellent. Yep. So we're all over the place here. So you can be too. All right. So start with the, you can start with the knees bent on the back, connecting with your breath. And we'll begin with a few pelvic tilts. Oh, sorry, try to face the camera a little bit. There we go. And so the pelvis tilts forward and back a few times until you're able to feel what neutral might be. Neutral has a little bit of tone. And then from that space, you can bring the hands back onto the floor. And from that neutral space, just start to press into the floor to unweight the hips. Unweight the hips. Let this be slow and gradual. Unweighting the hips, slowly peeling spine, almost just like a tenth of the way of what you would call bridge pose, and slowly back down. Rocking pelvis a couple of times. And then from there, unweighting one foot, slowly, foot is maybe an inch off the floor at the most, slowly comes down, come back to zero, relaxing your core, and then unweighting other foot. Keep it really simple. Back to the beginning, pelvic tilts, thigh neutral, unweighting hips. Feel like you're lifting up sort of against, like as if you had an imaginary sandbag on your hips. You should feel that kind of thorough work happening. Let the hips continue upwards though with that nice deep core integration. They find what you would call Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, but it's really coming from within, and it's almost like the hips are rising up to meet you. Take your time rolling the spine back down. Extend before we do anything else, just because we've done a lot here already. Just extend right leg, right arm, and just enough so you can roll onto your right side. I'm going to keep sort of moving so the camera can see me. and just sort of saying hello to the right side of the body. You know, it's nice to start on the back, but simultaneously it can get a little sleepy, especially if you're East Coast. And so rolling a few times on the back. I mean, not sorry, on the ribs, on the side of the rib cage. And then allow yourself to roll all the way onto your belly. Stack hands, forehead on hands. Breathe into not just the belly, but also the low back. Say hello to your low back with your breath. And then from here, this is one of my favorite exercises. Um, and it's challenging. It's challenging because it's subtle. But this was one of the sort of the moments when I really one of my first moments of feeling my body's intelligence. You're gonna very slowly unweight one foot and watch as all the muscles of the quads in the front, the glutes in the back, and everything rises up to lift that leg very easily without you telling yourself what to do, without you making it happen. Slowly release that foot. Go all the way to zero. Feel all muscles relax, and then unweight opposite foot. Watch what happens. Watch that first millisecond of movement and how your body organizes everything for you. It does all the work. You're really just directing. You're like guiding. You can try it again with each foot one time. You're like the director. You're sitting back and you're saying, "Hey, let's go this direction." But your body's the actor. Your body's actually doing this. We can keep lifting the left leg and then glide it over the right. It's going to sort of pull us back to where we came from. And your left hand can sort of brace on the floor and you can get the tug of war. The tug of war is really nice for releasing hips and psoas. And so the tug of war is you going back and forth from sort of the chest area to the rib cage, and the leg is doing the pulling. Cool. And this tug of war is going to be interesting. You can draw the right knee in towards you a little bit, and then the left leg's going to pull you all the way up to a Bharadvajasana seat. So the left leg sort of peels you up, and you can just go right into a rainbow with your right arm arching long towards the feet, and then let the heart look up and look down. So that's a little more work for the right side of the body, the lateral line on the right edge. We just rolled it on the floor. We released the front of the hips. We toned the back side of the body, and now we're hydrating the lateral line with this subtle shearing action. Arm can reach back down, peel you back to the floor, and you can bring your weight onto your back where we started. Couple of breaths here before we repeat on the other side. Remember, with diaphragmatic breathing, it's really just about making sure that the belly and the navel are participating. You don't have to like overdo it. You just want to feel the breath reaching these lower aspects of the torso. Unweighting one foot, unweighting other foot, and slowly back down. Tilt pelvis forward, tilt pelvis back a couple times, find neutral. And when you feel like you have a nice neutral position, you can try unweighting both feet, and you should feel it almost, this is going to sound funny, the compounding interest accumulating in your abdominals as the shins slowly rise. It's a direct relationship to the work you feel in the midsection, and as they slowly come back down, you can feel that drawbridge releasing its tension. Left leg and arm extend. Make sure you don't knock anything over. Do your best. And you're onto your side body for a few side body rolls. I'm going to keep spinning to see the camera and see you guys. Good. This is your chance to really decrystallize that lateral line on the left side. Who knows? Maybe it's different. Maybe it's the same from your right. Just that little bit of rocking. Maybe a stomach gurgle tells you you're on the right track. And we can come on to our belly for just a little bit of work here. Stacking hands, forehead on hands. Nice slow breath in. And as you exhale, unweighting 1 foot. And feel this it's not just one muscle. It should feel like the whole back of the leg. And down, slow breath in. And as you exhale, unweighting other foot and letting that sort of guide you up, almost like your leg is being lifted by a string. That string is your awareness. Slowly down. And this time you can actually bring the hands out to like in front of the shoulders with your fingertips, and we'll allow the whole body to sort of work together, except you're just going to do one diagonal line at a time. So we'll start with the right leg, unweighting and lifting, and try to feel the ripple effect as you guide the back up as well, glancing over to your left. So feeling this long diagonal from left shoulder to right leg, and then slowly back down. And then same on the other side. You want to feel the back of the body all like saying hello, one segment at a time. No one's dominating the movement, no muscles overworking. You're welcome to do both sides at your own pace one more time. So picture that diagonal line across the back from shoulder to foot. Next time you come down, we're actually going to bring the elbows under the shoulders. We will do the tug of war on the other side, but we're just in a really prime spot to say hello to the front of the core and the deep core as well. So the elbows are under the shoulders, you're up in Sphinx pose. Hopefully that's comfortable for you. And then from there, you're going to sort of peel the ribs and hips off of the floor and then let them peel back down. And similar to the back of the body, we're trying to feel the front of the body moving sequentially, saying hello to the whole line of musculature that's sort of peeling away from the floor. The next time the hips peel up, you can pause there for a moment and just keep lifting that tailbone up into what would look like a quarter plank, half plank. The knees are down, the elbows are down, and you can lift your tail up so you find that lumbar curve and just pausing here, front body getting a lot of tone in a very supported way, turning head to make sure it's not creeping into shoulders. All right, and slowly back down. And now the right leg will lift, glide over left, taking over the left side of the body in that tug of war, and then back to your belly. So take your time with this. The point is to feel the tug of war, not to just be done with it. And we'll let that leg pull us over onto the back. Draw the feet in so the knees are bent and low back is nice and supported, feeling good. Can have the hands resting on the navel for a moment. Oh, right. Okay. So we missed one thing, which we'll just do, but looks like we're resting for a second. Okay. So we gotta do the same side body release that we did at the end of the first section. So you'll come back over onto your left side. That means your left arm and leg are gonna extend. And the right leg isn't just going to pull you onto your back this time. It's going to pull you all the way up onto your sit bones. So the right leg sort of reaches and pulls you up. The left arm comes all the way up, arcing overhead. And you create this rainbow shape towards the feet. And as you feel the length and support, then you can the heart looks up and down, or sort of upwards and then downwards. Awesome. And then that arm can trace a path. We'll plant both hands into tabletop for the last moment or two. From tabletop, last little thing we'll do for the core is draw the abdominals in for the low back cat, trying not to emphasize the rib cage spine, trying to leave that as neutral as we can. And then keep those abdominals in as you pull the spine back into a neutral position, so into what you would call tabletop. So do that one more time. Abdominals draw in into a cat position, like you're rounding the back. Then you keep the abdominals in as you draw towards a neutral spine. Keeping the abdominals in as you arch the back slightly. It's a really unique sensation that what it does is it tends to keep that tone and keep that support. And then you can even drift into cow pose where you have that little bit of a low back arch, but the abs are still pressing in, still supporting you. Then you come back to neutral, left and right a couple times. Again, saying hello to the side bodies we just gave a lot of attention to. Can unweight opposite hand and foot if you like. And take the last minute or two to play around here or to rest in Bhaktasana. It's your minute. And as you are ready, you can start to make your way to your meditation seat. Right. We are still celebrating Rudi. Chaitanya, welcome. Colin, all right. Hopefully you got a little bit of that yoga in. Cool. Oh, great to see you, man. And if somebody can hand me that water bottle, it'll be great. All right, so it's still Rudi month. We're still celebrating Rudi as much as we can. I've got another excerpt ready for our class, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to listen to just the, yes, way to go. I wanted to listen to just the tension release part from last week where he guided tension release, and then pause it, take a minute or two, and then go into the new segment for this week. Um, I think everyone here was here for the guidance, last week for tension release. But just very simply, I'll literally just in 30 seconds. Remember, the form is like the fingers are just above the floor, shoulders are relaxed. There's three parts to it. There's a pranayama where you draw in 5 to 10 seconds in. Really take your time with that, pulling the awareness and breath down to the heart. There's a pause, a retention of the breath at the heart for the same length of time. Then there's an exhale for that same length of time. So that part's super valuable. Don't overlook it. Nice and slow, no strain, no stress. There's a visualization that's layered onto that. The inhale is the purest, clearest prana you can imagine, flowing in through the third eye, down the throat to the heart. As you're retaining the breath, the visualization is that you're collecting all this gunk, this molecular glue, as Rudi puts it, all this residue of your practice. And then as you exhale, all that flows out of the heart, down the arms and out the hands in the form of a smoke or dirty water or ash. And the final layer is that there's the wish. I deeply wish to release all negative psychic tension. And so that layering is when you're holding the breath in the heart. So this segment's about 3 or 4 minutes. Rudi talks about this practice, about its importance, and it feels very natural to just do the negative tension release as he's talking about it. I'm going to cue up that work. Everyone should see the screen, and I'll hopefully get a thumbs up on the audio as soon as I press play, okay? Here we go.
Opening, letting the force come in, bringing it up our spinal column, and filling us. And then also you should do this at least once a week, or if you're under very great tension, every day for a few minutes, just really keeping your hands outside and asking deeply to surrender negative psychic tensions. So when you begin to feel this flow coming through your fingers and you take a deep breath, you can feel this gummy substance. It's like the scum off the top of a soup coming through you. And it really has to do with the breaking down inside of patterns and the molecular glue, this thing that holds together these patterns in you. You allow this to wash out so that you have made the effort. You have paid so many times in your life, all of you, for a particular thing, and you grow, they say, from here to the ceiling, and you ripped everything out, and it's been shredded, and then you stop working, and a month later, this thing is all back within its own. It's always back to the way it was because you have never gotten rid of this cohesiveness and this adhesiveness that holds you together in these patterns. So when you work, you have to surrender this byproduct of breaking down, which has to do with the chaining, the molecularity of your chemistry. Because what good is it refining something and then have life do like it does with a jar of salad dressing? It shakes you up again, and it all becomes the same thing endlessly. So you have to begin to be very aware deeply in yourself that changing is not for an objective, it is for changing. Because as you break down that within you, within your tissue, within your whole body, these chainings take place, the breaking down of these chains, and you let out just enough of this tense energy, this negative psychic tension. You don't get rid of tensions, you don't get rid of psychic tension, you get rid of negative psychic tension. You're getting rid of this little glue that holds this thing within you. And your work has to be consciously, again and again, to take in more energy, expand, and then break it down and release it. So that in the middle of a very hard day or week or tremendous emotional time, you are suffering and burning out or boiling, and you feel all of these things ripping and tearing in you, and you don't get rid of this byproduct, this stuff, then your work is for nothing. Because it will reform exactly as it was over and over and over again. And you see this in outside life, where people repeat patterns endlessly. They learn that they're wrong, they consciously can see where they're wrong, but they never, ever get free from patterns. And it's not their wish, it's their limitation. They do not break down this glue that holds them. Because inside you, it stays the way it was, except it becomes free. It becomes a liquid instead of a solid. But when you really ask to release these negative psychic tensions, you are taking and changing the chemistry of this level. And so it never forms again, and you are open, you're free. And you must remember to do it. I mean, I had somebody came by today, and I could feel the tension. And I said, look, I know you've had a very hard time. Have you done this? Oh, I haven't done it for 6 or 7 weeks. You put a pressure on yourself which is absolutely unnecessary. And if you have to leave a note on your dresser or when you shave or wash in the morning, and you really ask yourself, as well as you flush a toilet to get rid of this physical poison that comes through your body, you have to consciously flush out of yourself this negative psychic tension. This is part of a breaking down of your living. And unless you understand that nothing ever disappears from a human being unless he consciously surrenders it. It does not go away. You have to really will it away. You have to consciously work it away. And so when you have a very difficult time, you can really make an effective change thousands of times faster by really surrendering, this molecular thing. And I sat this week once for 2 and 3 hours because I was burning. And I really just let this thing pour out of me. Sometimes I could feel it pouring out. Sometimes I felt it was pouring out. Sometimes I just wished it was pouring out. But I just was trying in every way possible to let it out. And really, finally, it changed today. And as these things change, you understand, as you work deeper and deeper and deeper inside yourself, that it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with it. It is a state of being that we're working towards. And it keeps you boiling long enough. It keeps you baking long enough. It keeps you going through all these processes long enough. You can only be prepared to be released at certain times. Now, released on what level has to do really with the consciousness and your ability, and I'll let you sit. You don't do this thing. You have to sit inside yourself and really understand that you want that. That's your objective, And you can only bring in and flush out and bring in and flush out until you refine your inner mechanism. Because for almost everyone who walks along the street,
We'll pause there for a few minutes. And I am just curious, and feel free to just continue with your tension release. If you want to do a few more breaths, absolutely do it. If after hearing from Rudi last week, and getting a bit of a, just an additional transmission on tension release, if anybody, had anything they wanted to share, any questions, or even just hearing it just now and working with it, comments or questions before we move into like new material. Yeah, Tejuan, Pujari.
I try to, helping me sleep at night, and different ways of like preparing for bed. I think I don't know. I can't say what is the effect, but I've had some better sleeps, and I think doing something tension release at night really helps. And I feel like there is something distinctly different between the tension release and say doing something else, like a stoic meditation or something. Like there is something different about it. I don't know what it is. Yeah. And that was my experience.
That's awesome. I really feel what you're saying, where you're sort of pointing to this and saying I can feel as an experience here. It's distinct, it's unique, from like the experience we had described, like your general meditation practice. And here we are hearing Rudi saying it's as essential as meditation, although we don't do it as much. And that's about all. You're like, that's about all I can say. And I feel like, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just being able to feel that it's distinct and yet essential is huge. I just think that's huge, because it means like, and in my opinion, it just means that like you're really feeling it happen, that it's not just sort of like something you feel like you should do, but it's actually you can feel its purpose. And whether we can put that into words, I think Rudi says later in the satsang, no matter how many books you read, you know, they all fall very short of describing anything like what we're doing. Thanks. Pujari, I saw your hand go up if you like.
I often rely on meditation. I feel fatigued a lot, and I rely on meditation to give me energy for my day. And I'm wondering, And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not like a foolproof. But the negative psychic tension release, I'm wondering if that's, I don't do it often enough. Like Rudi was saying, do it once a week at least. And I'm just wondering if your experience with it is that too, that it kind of flushes out the fatigue or the tension that causes tiredness, like meditation can do for us.
I feel like I'd be happy to open that question up to the group, or, if anybody feels like they've used it for, in that regard, before I jump in on it. Yeah, Anju.
Jerry, that's like really, really cool insight. I don't know if I've noticed it for like fatigue specifically, but I have noticed sort of like a mental kind of fog clearing, like this just sharpness in me, like not even necessarily mental, but just this like feeling a little like inside clean, if that makes sense. Like after doing it, just kind of, so I would think that if the challenge would be fatigue, that likely would sort of work in that way as well. Like maybe not like instantaneously, but that kind of like just feeling lighter. Like I kind of feel like it just like floats me up out of my junk a little bit.
Thanks, Anju. I did see a couple nods, and here in the room even heard a couple, yeah, So I think you were sort of hitting on something. I mean, when Rudi was talking to that student in satsang, he was saying this, individual comes up to me. They said they've been working with this tension for a long time, but they haven't been doing this practice and for 6 or 7 weeks. And he's like, you're putting an unbearable amount of pressure on you. I mean, fatigue. I'm not going to try to, I don't want to go beyond my scope here, because I think that there's probably whole medical disciplines that would describe it. But I do know that, sleep pressure is a real thing. It's described as a pressure. It accumulates throughout the day. I'm sure there's a lot of other contributing factors to what you're feeling, but pressure is literally, sleep pressure accumulates in order to help you go to sleep at night. Rudi was using the term of pressure to say, like, without this tension release, this pressure builds unnecessarily. So it's almost like every night when we go to sleep, that sleep pressure is released, and then it starts to build the next day according to the circadian rhythm. And sort of similar to tension release, it's like if we don't have a way to release, it's almost like just not getting enough sleep, night after night, and that sleep pressure just sort of keeps accumulating. So I personally would think it seems to be very much related to fatigue. If you were to look at fatigue as a term of this feeling of like this sleep pressure that's just sort of weighing on you. But what's more important than anything someone can say? Doing it a little more regularly, seeing if it's real. I think for me, when it comes to this Rudi satsang on tension release, it's him basically saying like, hey, this is important, guiding you through it with Shakti. So it's not just an afterthought. And so you actually go after it like your practice. Like that to me, it was like the missing element, and why the Rudio really helped me out. It's because I was just going after tension release sort of like an afterthought. It didn't have a lot of Shakti. It didn't have a lot of my awareness. So anyone else before we look at some new material? Cool. Okay. Oh yeah, Colin, go for it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay, I was having some difficulties with my computer, so I'm on my phone. But yeah, I have had a similar thing with the fatigue recently, actually. Just my job every day is quite physical, and I do it a lot. So it's strange when I'm at work, I don't notice myself getting as tired, but then I get home and it all kind of sets in. And then I feel like the timing of this has really been spectacular, because I remember doing the tension release practice plenty, but then it kind of just slipped out of my conscious awareness. And so when we were listening last week, and the part where Rudi said, if you're under a great amount of tension, maybe you should do this every day versus like once a week. So whenever I remember, I've been trying to do it throughout the week. And I feel a similar thing when I sit down to do it, where um, it's like there's this passive tension I'm carrying around and building up throughout the day, every day, but I'm not actively aware of it because I'm just so focused on all these other moving parts of what's going on in life right now. And then when I get home, I start to feel it, but I don't know exactly how to work with it. I mean, I do some meditation and yoga and stretching and other things. But just doing the tension release practice this last week, and then even just now when I was doing it, it almost feels like there's like this crystallization that's just breaking open, and then some energies being let go. And I feel everything kind of soften, and I feel more ready to go do whatever it is I need to do, or have more energy to go. I don't know, not just feel like that sleep pressure you're just talking about, there's building up, and I just feel like I need to go lay down or sleep or whatever. So it has been tremendous for that. And actually yesterday, it wasn't immediately after doing the tension release, but it feels like it might have been a product of doing that throughout this week. There was some internal blockage, it felt like, that was removed, and I had a tremendous like kind of softening and increase in energy. So that was quite wonderful. I just wanted to add that in.
Hmm. Thanks, Colin. It's always so awesome to see you, and just hearing that this is benefiting you is like, yes, I love it. Love hearing that. Yeah, I mean, as a sort of a someone who's put so much time into studying physiology, functional movement patterns, I would think, you probably have a better sense, when you look at the body of all the different things that are required to help it make to get from A to B. It's never just work it. Just keep working it. Just keep working it. It's always like there's these like intervals that are required, these like downtimes. There's, like what's the point of an ice bath? What's the point of a like there's all these supplemental things that we do to supplement the work that we're doing. And when it comes to the body, it's like almost what makes somebody great at your job is probably knowing all those other aspects that are around the actual moment of work. And sort of that's what Rudi, was. He could see what our energetic body needed in order to to make the work productive. So thanks. Oh, another point. Okay. And then we'll move on to the
If I just add one thing.
yeah, please.
So just for some context, I work at this place here. I stretch people all day. It's kind of like doing massage, but just stretching. It's a bit of a weird job, but it's interesting, or it's been interesting to observe. You would think that a lot of the people that are really tight every day that I see, because it's very varying. Some people are super flexible. Some people can barely move. Um, and you would think a lot of the people that are really tight are the people that are overusing their bodies, doing a lot of physical work and stuff like that. But oftentimes it's the opposite I see. And it's become very evident to me that there's some linkage between, you might call stress or tension or some sort of thing like that, either psychically, energetically, or mentally, and then how that manifests in the body. And so this practice has been awesome for that too, because as I've noticed this, I try to kind of convey this to people, where it's like, yes, stretching and moving your body is important as a way to physically release tension. There's also some tension you're passively accumulating throughout the day and throughout life. But it's been hard to kind of say like, oh, just be more chill, like let that go or whatever, especially if someone has no experience with meditation or whatever. So it's nice to have some sort of practice where, especially knowing that myself, I've also struggled to like find some way to then get home and let go of that. So this has been phenomenal for that. But
It's huge. Yeah, it's like you get to see behind the curtain a little bit and have this whole other perspective that yeah, you're right. It's like a you have to take a whole nother training, like the meditation training almost to be able to like refine that way of talking to people about it, or almost like, well, you should come to this other thing I do. And that's cool when you can see that firsthand. You're like, I'm seeing connections here. All right, so our next segment for Rudi is a little bit longer than what we just did. I think it's about 8 or 9 minutes. Question here in the room. Oh, um, I don't know. Yeah, but let's see. It's 24, actually 9 minutes. Yeah, I might pause it halfway, to give us time to sit, because it's always good to like listen and sit. So, I'll try to be skillful with that moment. Cool. And let me just get the shared screen going. There's a lot happening. Sharing. All right. And oh boy, sorry guys. Here we go. There it is. All right, here we go. So it jumps right in.
Is very difficult for every human being.
I'm gonna back
and function while we're growing. Life is very difficult for every human being. And all of you who feel unique in the sense that you suffer, then you don't understand it. Everybody suffers. Everyone suffers tremendously. And when you can accept your own suffering and realize it is for a purpose, that you can move from one stage to another, one rung on a ladder to another, and you can accept this and take these steps, not to suffer and stand there looking up at this ladder like an idiot. And a lot of you do that. You stand there and you are just like some Jew against the Wailing Wall, lamenting and crying and lamenting and crying. But if you put a ladder against the wall, you can step on it and climb over and finally achieve something. This thing of accepting without a reward is one of the most unbelievable stupidities I've ever heard in my life. And every time I've ever studied anywhere, the thing that's always drilled into your head is that you work and you don't expect. I don't accept it. I can't possibly believe it. You work and you expect everything. You are open for everything. You really should grow. Life should be remarkable. It should be beautiful. It should be joyous. It should be filled with all of the goodness in life. Because finally in this existence, you have to be tested with everything, whether it's a person or money or power or anything else. You have to be able to open your hands and let go. And it's this thing you have to, and you can only surrender that which you have. I mean, a beggar cannot surrender money. Somebody who's by himself cannot surrender a person that he loves. And someone who has power can only surrender that power. And you all must realize you have to be extraordinarily successful and prove what you think you are willing to do now when you don't have, you prove by doing when you have. Because to really achieve in this life is to do and have everything and stay free. These are finally the real temptations and the real realities of our existence. Not to sit there and be on the bus and the subway and look at people driving by in their Rolls Royces and he must be unhappy. You be inside and see whether you can give away your Rolls Royce for some child who's starving in Africa. Then you have begun to learn what it is to be a human being. But unless you have it and you can give it up, you have no right to talk. And you all talk like millionaires and you act like beggars and you don't even respect the things that are given you as part of your being here or being anywhere else. And it's very, very unfortunate. Until you respect somebody else's thing, somebody else's energy, as if it was sacred, then there's no understanding in you, there's no compassion in you, and no anything else in you. And to come with stupid questions, to come not prepared to work inside, to really not be in the deep sense and surrender, to allow the energy to come in and fill you so that you really can be open, so you really have something to give up. This is just a coward's way. To be in here projecting from your head some kind of madness and thinking that you're doing instead of really being open and letting the force fill you. You can't open unless it's filling you in your heart, and your heart opens and opens and opens and opens and opens. From the top of your head, these great illusions of grandeur, what you would do. But unless you can feel the energy really filling your heart and spreading and spreading and spreading and spreading, and then coming down into the lower chakras and opening and opening and opening and opening, you are living a lie, because you cannot in any way consider yourself open unless you can feel this energy with your breathing and your consciousness going into these muscles. And falling over and making noises and everything else is not to do with reality. Reality is feeling one chakra being filled and spreading with your consciousness and will against the resistance of not wanting to open. And so you remove the paralysis of one level and you keep your attention there. I'd rather see one area working in any one of you than to try and show me this total shtick that you do of going to a whole level. This is not Mardi Gras night, it's not the Rose Bowl. You work and you do the exercise from the very beginning, and the first thing is to take a deep breath, swallow in your throat, and feel it in your heart spreading. If it does not spread all the way through and really open your heart chakra, then, quote unquote, you have no heart chakra. And if you can't start there, and you don't feel in there, then you are absolutely full of shit. You are making a lot of noise and taking up a lot of room here, and you haven't begun the basic exercise. And all of this other stuff is a lot of stuff. You either open, because this is where the wish comes from for any human being to grow spiritually. Your wish is in your heart, and if you don't feel your heart open, you have no wish, you cannot begin. And you can't pretend, you can't be in here thinking that you're climbing to the Himalayas or flying around the universe. That is absolutely an illusion. If your heart isn't deeply opening and opening and opening, and you feel the resistance and you feel the pain, and you can surrender and relax there and open more and more and more and more and more, and have this thing really, expand. And then when you let out 1/5 of the air, and you take your second breath, you feel the energy coming down to the third chakra and opening. Then you know, technically and realistically, you are doing something. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're going through another illusion.
So take a moment to put the work into effect. Rudi made it unbelievably clear that when we're meditating, if we can't bring our attention to the heart and open there, then our work can't really begin. And that sometimes we get these grand aspirations, talking really big game, so to speak, whether we're aware of it or not, when in reality, the very first step has not taken place. And that is the ability to bring your attention to the heart and to open and expand there at a fundamental level. This is the wish to grow. It doesn't mean you don't feel resistance. It means you work with that resistance to open your heart. Rudy talked about part of the illusion that we experience is that we feel like we're suffering and we don't recognize that that suffering is a ladder by which we climb out of our suffering. That when we use this experience of resistance or of numbness or of distraction, when we use it consciously, when we work within the heart and we open through that, that's how we climb both out of our suffering and also into our growth. And that you should expect to grow if you do the work. Breathing into your heart is like climbing a ladder. It takes work, but it's also very accessible. It's very possible for each of us. Not one of us is without this challenge. Rudi said that absolutely everyone suffers, everyone struggles. And so each of us is doing this work. And so there's no reason to think that somehow someone else is free of it, or you'll somehow stumble into a time when you don't have to do this to feel open. This is how openness happens. Try to feel that unique sensation of growing. How Tejavan described a unique sensation to tension release. There's a unique experience with this practice, this fundamental practice of surrender. It's not all effort. It's also grace. It's release. But there is an element of climbing the ladder. it could be nice to take the last minute or two of practice for the tension release if you're feeling like that would complement your work right now. If you're feeling like the iron is hot and you want to keep working, absolutely continue with that. Welcome to flick out the fingertips and wipe off the arms if that's where you're at. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for practicing. We can pick up from here next week, and Chaitanya, I'll text you and see if that works for you too. As far as using your work, your challenges as a ladder to climb out of your suffering, to remember that all sentient beings are in a very similar state of challenge, and that the practice is literally the way that you climb out of it and grow from it and find that relief that we're seeking. So maybe those metaphors will help you in the coming week. You can check back in next week with it and then continue on with the rest of the audio. So hope you have a great another Rudi week. Namaste again.